When we take a look at this slide, we see this illustration brought up for the long-term athlete development presented by U.S. Soccer in the curriculum. And this has produced hours of discussion with our staff, and certainly some of that's carrying over with our parents, and we certainly encourage that. So we see some kind of subheadings with a picture of players at the center of the illustration. So we're hoping that the player is the center to our decision making as we take into account the various subheadings in our long-term athlete development model. So a lot of research helps guide us to the understanding of the 10,000-hour rule of deliberate practice, whether players want to be proficient in soccer, master pianist, whatever it happens to be in their chosen genre or activity. 10,000-hour rule is pretty consistent with research as a required amount of time to spend learning techniques and mastering techniques in order to become proficient. Specialization, we have most of our club is multi-sport athletes to one degree or another, and certainly multi-activity. So we want to make sure we are emphasizing soccer and also helping players gain an all-around athletic background in playing different sports. The challenge is certainly on the player to manage their time with their academic schedule. The challenge is on the coach to be more aware and more informed about what the player is doing when he or she is not with the team. We sometimes see players dragging and performing in a very tired or fatigued fashion at training, and the reaction of some coaches is to be more demanding. And I'm asking our coaches to ask the player, "Hey, what's going on? Are you tired because you didn't sleep well, or you're studying for tests, or you're playing other sports, or doing extra training on your own, or why is it that you seemingly are fatigued or not playing up to your potential?" And this certainly an extra burden on parents with the specialization of early versus late on their commitment level to support the players in their physical commute, the time spent, the energy spent, the economic model, and how much can the player take in their diet and their lifestyle, whether it's soccer, education, studies, and other activities. So we certainly see a lot of correlation here with specialization in other sports, and there's a lot of carryover with the other invasion sports. Other invasion sports can be hockey, basketball, lacrosse, field hockey, even American football, going towards an end zone, defending an end zone. These are some examples of where there's a tremendous amount of carryover in principles and organization from one sport to another. See a lot of similarities, and certainly enough documented research to note that a multi-sport athlete who plays soccer can become a top athlete and a top soccer player. The challenge is when players are missing soccer for the other sports, are they developing as a soccer player? Is it better to have a player playing multiple sports and missing soccer frequently versus playing soccer only? And that's certainly an ongoing debate that tends to fluctuate based on the goals and expectations of the player and that family, as well as the amount of trainings and contacts they're missing for each respective sport. So there's a burden placed on each coach in that player's life, each team, and certainly the parents to take on more responsibility for the multi-sport player. There's an awful lot of feedback for players that are playing team sports to also allow them an individual sport, whether it's tennis or taekwondo or what have you. The idea of complementing one team sport with an individual sport is carrying a lot of positive feedback and research. Developmental age is critical. We see some 14-year-olds who look like 11, 12-year-olds, and some 14-year-olds that look like they're 16, 17-year-olds. So what's the capacity of each player? We kind of have this natural segregation in youth sport by age and ability, and the last generation of our leagues and team development are allowing a lot more flexibility than we used to break beyond age segregation and develop players. But we still admittedly have a long way to go in this arena. So taking into account the developmental age of the player, at what age are we offering techniques and the complexity of each technique, how much support and how much are we pressuring the players to allow them to respond and have success? At what point do we frustrate the player by giving them too much? And at what point is the player bored by not giving them enough of a challenge? This concept of continuous improvement, this mythical notion that players are always this ascending line and always getting better because they're spending more time on the ball. And we certainly understand players go through peaks and valleys based on their physical development, emotional development, and it's our job as coaches and it's our job as a club to take care of our players and try to maximize the peaks and minimize the valleys. But there is no doubt, just physiologically, as players are going through growth spurts and bones are expanding and ligaments and tendons are stretching and muscles are getting stretched, the player will at some point seemingly lose their fine motor skills and essentially regress with their skill as they're going through their growth spurts. And as they get through their growth spurt, that skill seemingly comes back to them with more training and more practice. Trainability and adaptation, how flexible are we? Are players able to take on different demands in training environments? And then certainly physical literacy and fundamentals. How sound are they as athletes? Physical, mental, cognitive, and emotional development for player development. The calendar planning for competition is critical, and really getting a better sense of what each athlete's doing. We have a lot of players doing an awful lot of activities beyond soccer and trying to be more aware and have more open discussions with parents and what they're doing when they're not playing soccer with us. So we have a better understanding of when they're physically, emotionally, mentally spent and need some rest and recovery, and when we can peak players. So this whole concept of periodization and time management, where players are going through different periods of strong intensity during the year and certain periods of lower intensity where they're allowed to recover and regenerate. So it's a critical topic for us in long-term athlete development. We're continually going back and forth with specific age groups and specific teams and specific players with our coaches. And the more conversations we have with our parent membership and our coaches, the more information we can exchange about our players that we're working with. And the parents can shed light on some insights to the personality of the players away from what we see on the soccer field. I think the better we can service the players and develop the players and teams.